Fate is a revenge thriller about a girl who she's going through what's called a fugue state, which is a psychiatric disorder. It's sort of like a rare form of amnesia where you take on, basically you take on a whole new personality, and it can last an hour or it can last months. So she's going through that, and she's avenging her lover to death, but we see her going through two different timelines. So it's her in a regular state, and then her when she's going through this fugue state. So she kind of plays two different characters. And it sort of goes back and forth, and you piece it all together, and it's a unilateral story.
So what inspired you or your director to think of this movie, to create it?
So, interesting story there. April Mullen is our director, and Tim Doran wrote the film, and he actually also stars in it. And April accent as well for England. I don't know exactly where it started, but I know that they had thought about this script a long time ago, and they really wanted to do it for a while, and just never had the opportunity. So, about a year and a half ago is when we shot it, and it was just a really exciting time for them to finally do it. But I know that April came across an article one time about somebody who's going through a fugue state, and it was a really interesting story where someone came to basically, and they were on a plane, and all they had was like a backpack full of gumballs, which was sort of what inspired this. Is like a recurring element of the film. And I guess this person had been out of it for months, and they lived in Vancouver or something like that. But they took on this whole other personality, and they were just, I don't know the full story, but I know that that's sort of where the base of the idea came from when April and Tim, the creators of the film.
When does it come out?
So in Canada we have a one-night special event at Landmark Cinemas. There's 18 theaters across the country. And then on May 8th, we're going to have it in St. Catharines, Toronto, Ottawa, and Vancouver will be in the theaters for a week.
That's great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hello, Daily Fandom fans. I have here Fernando Ruiz, and he is the writer and artist of Archie Comics.
Yes.
Right. So, what was your inspiration for the Archie comics? Like, who inspired you to make such a famous comic?
Well, Archie's now 75 years old, so he's been around for a long time. And I used to read Archie when I was a kid, so I was always a big fan of the comics myself. So I was very happy when they let me come on board and draw him.
So, do you write the storylines yourself too?
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes they ask me to write the script, and then they'll ask me to draw it too.
Do you have any does anybody inspire you?
Yeah, well, I look back at the guys who were writing and drawing Archie when I was a kid, like writers like Frank Doyle, then the artists like Dan DeCarlo, Harry Lucy, Sam Schwartz. I'm always looking back at what they did to sort of continue educating myself.
So how did your career start in writing comics and drawing?
Well, I went to art school for comics, the Kubrick School in Dover, New Jersey. And one of the great things about the school is they bring the different comic book companies to the school to look at our portfolios when we're graduating. And Archie was one of the companies that came out when I was graduating. And they liked what I could do, so a week after I graduated, I went up to Archie and started on my very first story. And then a year later, I went back to the school and started teaching there.
Oh.
And I'm still there now.
Oh. So
for 20 years.
That's great. Did you know from when you were really young that you wanted to draw comics, or?
Yeah, I was always a big fan of comics. So I wanted to make a career as an artist, preferably as a comic artist. But as long as I could make a living drawing, I'd be happy.
So who's your favorite comic book artist?
My favorite of all time?
Yes.
Ooh, it's hard to nail it down to one, because I love a lot of different comics. So with Archie, I guess my favorite would have to be Harry Lucy. Then I also used to love a lot of Superman comics when I was a kid.
Superman is very sexy.
Yeah, and there was a guy, well, I guess so. But there was an artist who drew him named Kurt Swan, and he was a big favorite of mine.
So do you have a favorite comic book other than Archie?
Well, Superman would have to be.
Your talk is super. Thank you so much for your time.
Oh,
It was nice.
thank you.
It was nice meeting you.
Thank you
so
very much. It was fun.
Hello, the Daily Fandom fans. Today is day 3 of Toronto ComiCon, and I have here Mr. Nick Bradshaw. Mr. Nick Bradshaw, or Nick, what do you do for a living?
I'm a comic artist currently working for Marvel Comics.
So let me ask you, Marvel or DC?
I don't really blur those lines. I started with DC. They were a lot of fun to work with. I'm currently working with Marvel now. There's a lot of cool stuff coming out of Marvel, and I'm enjoying my time with them.
So who inspired you to start drawing comics? I've had all different types of influences. I started reading and working in Archie comics like when I was a kid. That was what I was drawing off of. And then I discovered superhero comics, and I have my influences. Arthur Adams is one. Alex Toth is another. Michael Golden, who's here, was another one I grew up with. So it's always cool to, come to these conventions and you run into your heroes that, inspired you. Have you ever, well, I guess the term would be fangirl, but have you ever fanguyed since they're here?
Yeah. Last year I went to Big Wow, which is in San Jose, and I got to meet Arthur for the first time, which was, my voice actually cracked when I met him, and I'm like 35 years old at the time, so it was just awesome.
So who's your favorite Marvel superhero? Since you work for Marvel.
Oh, the Hulk. I grew up reading the Hulk when I was a kid. My parents, when I was younger, when I was first born, they bought this old Remco Hulk piggy bank, and I still have it at home. So I used to draw that all the time, and then I got into the comics as I got older.
So do your parents ever figure that, do your parents encourage you, like your line of work? Do they?
Oh yeah, at first it was a little different. It was a little something they couldn't buy into, because I'm from the east coast of Canada.
Yeah.
I'm from New Brunswick. Before they always thought you had to live in the big cities to do this kind of thing. But with the internet, you can work globally. Like I can work from home and I can just submit all my stuff all over the place. So they started accepting it more as a job when I brought them to the first convention, and they could see the amount of people that came and, that pick up the book.
So are you working on anything new? Anything that you
Currently,
want
I'm just
fans
doing
to know about?
covers. They're doing their big company-wide shake-up at Marvel. They've got their Secret Wars, which is their big crossover event. And then, right now it's just cover work until they can actually find a project for me to latch on to.
It was very nice meeting you, Mr.
Pleasure to
Bradshaw.
meet you.
Thanks so much.
No problem.
This is my first convention, so I don't have a lot of prior experience. But seeing all the people cosplay and they have anime figurines and stuff, I don't know. It's a lot of fun, actually. I definitely want to come to a fan expo or an Anime North or something in the future.
So what, my experience? I guess it's really cool coming to these expos because you can, meet up with the artists face to face, get to know what they're talking about and how they draw, how they came here and stuff. It's actually really good to know about the careers and how it works out. 'Cause usually, when you get into these things, you don't really just make it. So it's a really good experience to talk about. And the merchandise is actually pretty awesome, and also free workshops too. So it's basically a really well-rounded experience, I guess. Walking is a downside, I guess. But yeah, I think that's mostly it.
Hi guys, you've reached the end of our Toronto ComiCon coverage. We hope you enjoyed it. Click here to subscribe, or click here if you want a cookie.